Chapter 12. Bunking Off. Bunking off school was not something Jack had ever done before. However, he knew he had to make sure Grandpa got all the way home. The old man was much more confused than usual. Miss Verity had completely taken the wind from beneath his wings, and now Grandpa was looking a little wobbly. And the last thing the boy wanted to do was call his parents. If they found out how disastrously Grandpa's visit to the school had gone, chances were they would send him straight to Twilight Towers. So Jack led them back to Grandpa's flat. When the pair approached, Raj was in the grimy window of his shop. The newsagent was busy showing off his artistic side. He was arranging a rather surreal display of his two main special offers that week, licorice and football cards. The licorice was wrapped round the cards, making both look highly undesirable. As soon as he spotted Jack and his grandfather, Raj rushed out of his shop to greet them. "Ah, Mr. Bunting, Master Bunting." "It's Bunting," corrected Jack. "That's what I said," protested Raj. "Bunting." Like all the local children, Jack liked the newsagent very much. The man never failed to put a smile on your face. "So, Mr. Bunting, I was my favourite customer today. I was worried sick when you went missing from your flat in the middle of the night." "Ah, Charwalla, there you are," proclaimed Grandpa. "Charwalla? What on earth does that mean?" asked Jack. He'd never heard such a phrase before. Raj whispered to the boy. "I asked my father back in India. He told me it's the name for an Indian man who serves tea. They sometimes did to British soldiers during World War II. I think your grandfather is getting more confused by the day." "What's that, Charwalla?" barked Grandpa as he started helping himself to some out-of-date bars of chocolate. "Nothing, sir," replied Raj. "I found it much easier to go along with him," he added in a whisper to Jack. "Me too," replied the boy. "Now I'm going to need some help in getting him upstairs." "Of course, young man. Before we go, might I be able to interest you in a copy of the Radio Times of 1975? "No, thanks, Raj." The newsagent was not giving up. Many of the shows on TV now are repeats, so it might well still be accurate. "We really should be getting him upstairs." "Of course. Now, what would you give me for this chocolate-covered toffee? Someone has licked off the chocolate, and the chocolate centre is missing." With that, the newsagent took out a shiny piece of purple paper from his pocket. "Raj, that's just a wrapper." "That's why it's half price. There's no sweet. You can sniff the wrapper." "Enough chitter-chatter. Thank you, Charwalla," interrupted Grandpa, as he stuffed a few of the out-of-date chocolate bars in his pocket for later. "It's time for my afternoon nap." It felt strange putting an old man to bed. Up until recently, it would have been Grandpa tucking Jack in. Now the roles had been reversed. Of late, Grandpa would become tired during the day, so he took an hour's nap every day after lunch. Raj had locked up his shop for a short while, so he could help Jack get his grandfather safely up the stairs. 40 winks. That's what Grandpa always called his nap time. Raj drew the frayed curtains in the bedroom as Jack arranged the old man's blanket. "Make sure my Spitfire is full up with fuel, will you, squadron leader? I need to be ready in case we're scrambled. The Luftwaffe could be back at any moment." "Yes, of course, Grandpa," replied Jack without thinking. "Who's this Grandpa?" he demanded suddenly, looking wide awake. "I mean, yes, of course, Wing Commander, sir." Jack added a salute to complete the illusion. "That's better, officer. Dismissed. I'm plumb tuckered out." With that, the boy's grandfather saluted and stifled a yawn. As soon as he closed his eyes, the deafening snoring began. Up and down went the end of the old man's moustache as Jack and Raj tiptoed out of his bedroom. Back down in the newsagent's shop, Raj pulled out 2 old wooden crates for him and Jack to sit on. Next, he rummaged around for something to eat before he decided upon a battered Easter egg and half a packet of cheesy biscuits that had somehow found their way behind the radiator. "Thank you so much for calling my dad last night, Raj," said Jack. "Of course, young Master Bunting. If truth be told, it isn't the first time your grandfather has wandered out after dark." "I know," replied the boy, his face clouded with worry. A man of his grandfather's age could go missing at night in the depths of winter, and that could be fatal. The time before, I'd always managed to chase down the street after him and bring him back upstairs. As you can see, I have an athletic build," said the newsagent as he slapped his tummy. It wobbled like a huge jelly, and like an earthquake, the aftershocks went on for quite a while. But last night, I wasn't fast enough. I was feeling a little woozy, as I'd been on the chocolate liqueurs. Jack wasn't sure you could actually get tipsy on them. How many did you have, Raj? Just 3, replied the newsagent innocently. Surely there can't be much alcohol in just 3. 3 boxes, that is, confessed Raj. I feel rather hungover today. You see, I hadn't sold them at Christmas, and they'd gone out of date. But it's only January. This was Christmas 1979. Oh, replied the boy. They'd gone white, the newsagent admitted. Anyway, by the time I'd finally managed to get out of bed, get dressed and stumble onto the street, he'd gone. I chased him up and down the road, but there was no sign of him. Young grandfather can move fast. His mind may be going, but his body is still so strong. So I rushed back into the flat, flicked through the telephone directory, but there's a misprint in it. It says Bunting and not Bumpting. The boy was about to interrupt to correct Raj, but thought better of it. Still, eventually, I found the number and called your father. Mr. Bumpting said he would go out and look for him in the car. Which reminds me, where on earth did you find your grandfather in the end? We looked all over town, Raj, said Jack, picking up the story. But we were looking in the wrong places. We were looking down when we should have been looking up. The newsagent scratched his head. I don't follow you, he said, as he popped another cheesy biscuit in his mouth. These are covered in furry mould, he added, before pouring them all down his throat. My grandpa always says, up, up and away. He used to say it during his takeoff when he was a pilot with the RAF. So I knew he would be up high somewhere. Now, where do you think is the highest point in town? Raj looked lost in thought for a moment. That jar of jelly babies is very high up. I need a stepladder to get all the way up there. Jack shook his head impatiently. No, it's the church spire. Goodness gracious, how on earth did your grandfather get up there? He must have climbed up. He wanted to touch the sky. When he was up there, he thought he was piloting his Spitfire. Dear, oh dear. On top of a church spire, thinking he's driving a plane? The old man is lucky to be alive. I fear your grandfather's mind is getting worse by the day. The truth hit the boy like a runaway train, and his eyes filled with tears. Instinctively, Raj put his arm round the boy's shoulder. There, Jack. It's okay to cry. Would you like me to buy a pack of used tissues? Jack didn't fancy drying his eyes where a stranger had blown his nose, so he replied, No, thank you, Raj. The thing is, my mum and dad want Grandpa to go into that new old folks home, Twilight Towers. Oh dear, muttered Raj, shaking his head. What's the matter? I am sorry, young Master Bumpting, but I do not like the look of that place one bit. It gives me the willies. It is on the edge of the moors. Raj shuddered at the thought. Some local people say the only way out of Twilight Towers is in a coffin, he added gravely. No, exclaimed Jack. But he can't go there. But Raj, my parents have made up their minds. They are set on it. Why can't your grandfather come and live with your family? Suddenly a broad smile lit on the boy's face. I'd love that. That's how we do things in India. The old folk are looked after by the younger folk. I have my elderly aunt living up in the flat with me. I didn't know that. Yes, Aunt Dillery. She can't actually leave the flat. Is she too old? No. Too big? His voice lowered as he looked up at the ceiling. She's always been a large lady, but since living above a sweet shop, she has ballooned. I would have tied a crane and knocked down a wall if she ever wanted to pop out. Jack painted this image in his mind for a moment. A large lady in a brightly coloured sari being winched out across the street. Then his thoughts returned to the important matter in hand, his grandfather. We don't have a spare room, but I've got bunk beds. In fact, Grandpa stayed there last night. There's no reason why he can't stay forever, Raj. Raj, you are a genius. I know, replied the newsagent. I'm going to run home and tell my mum and dad right away. You do that, young Master Bumpting. The boy dashed towards the door. And please tell your good parents to pop by my shop soon. I have an excellent deal going on yoghurt. Well, I say yoghurt. It's last month's milk and... But before the newsagent could finish his sentence, the boy was gone.